Hello, welcome to another drawing video. So, I thought this week we could do some drawing exercises, mainly because I've been getting a lot of comments and messages in regards to how to gain confidence using only pen and drawing without a undersketch, let's call them. Now, these are exercises that you can do regardless of whether you draw with a pen or not. These are very much sort of aimed at beginner to intermediate, but I think anyone could use them as, say, like a warm-up for a few minutes. But yeah, they're definitely more aimed at, people who want to get a little bit more confident with their line quality, drawing with a pen, or just line quality in general. There's a little bit of form in some of the shapes I'm going to be drawing. This will be by no means sort of like an in-depth video. These are just sort of like me hinting at a few things that I do. If you want me to go further in depth with a few of these things, so just let me know, and I'll do that in later videos. But for now, let's get on with it. So, it seems really basic, but if you really want to gain confidence and you want to get out of the routine of sort of doing, like little wibbly wobbly lines, which I still do all the time, and like I say, it seems simple, but it is basically just drawing lines. So, it's the main trick to this, from what I'm aware and what I've found, is to draw from the shoulder and not from the wrist like this, because you've got more movement in your shoulder and it'll remain straighter than in your wrist, because there's a natural bend in the joint, and there's not a lot of movement in there, really, unless you're doing a small sketch, and then it's fine. So this is what I do. So nice long line, then draw over that again, and then maybe again, and the idea is that you try and keep within, you try and make it as neat as possible. Now, that's not incredibly neat, but like I say, it's a warm-up. I've not really drawn today, so there's a little bit of that in there. Although I wouldn't necessarily punish yourself for it not being perfect. I don't think I've ever done a truly perfect set of lines. But anyway, it just sort of carries on much in a similar sort of way to this. I know you can't quite see all of that, but from there to there. Now, if you're an absolute beginner, you're just someone who wants to begin drawing, fill up a sketchbook, dirt cheap sketchbook filled with lines. Now, you don't have to only draw lines, but guarantee within a week or two you'll notice a big difference, and you'll start getting into good habits when it comes to actually using your shoulder and not your wrist all the time. And it'll stop these little feathering lines, these cautious sort of things, which have their place. It can be a stylistic choice or whatever, but a nice, if you're wanting a nice solid line to gain some confidence, especially with pen, that's what I'd recommend starting off with. Now, if you've done that, maybe filled a sketchbook with that, or you use that, you've done that exercise every day for the past month or whatever, then move on to some curved lines. Something like this, and try and keep them as even as you can. So something like that. And then go over it again. Oh, too busy looking at the camera. like that, and again continue to do that. So then it's a mixture of lines. Then again, once you're comfortable with that and you want to move on to something else, then maybe move on to doing some circles. And again, sort of keeping it a continuous line like that. And this is something you could do potentially at the top of your sketchbook. I used to do this in the very first page of my sketchbook every day, something like this anyway. I sort of changed it here and there throughout the years. Yeah, I feel like that's a nice little sort of warm-up. It takes a minute or two to sort of do. By all means, fill an entire page with that every day. If you're really, not so confident with drawing, or you want to, improve your line quality. But yeah, there it is. So that's exercise 1, let's say. So the second thing I typically do, and again, I'm not going to delve too much into the theory of things here, but if you're feeling up to it, something that I tend to do is draw shapes. Now, it's not something I've done in a little while, but again, maybe start with something that's pretty familiar, like a cube. Then try and move it around the page. Now, there is a little bit of perspective knowledge involved with this, I suppose, although a lot of the time I do this instinctually. Now, and just sort of play around with it, do some little ones, do some big ones. Again, these are quite tricky when you first start to draw them. So maybe just focus on one cube type, say like that, which is sort of like a basic cube, let's say. So start with the square. Lines all move towards the horizon. But as long as they're all, sort of aimed towards a particular direction, you should be fine. And then I see a lot of people do them like this, which I don't do, as you can tell, because I've ballsed that up. But yeah, so once you've loosely mastered the cube, or you feel a bit more comfortable with that, and you can maybe do a full rotation, then maybe move on to something a bit longer like that. More of a long rectangle. Or you could do panels. Well, that's what I call them anyway. These are sort of like squat cubes. And again, there'll be, plenty of resources out there on how to draw cubes. As I've said before, I'm not technically a teacher or anything, so I'm a little bit lacking when it comes to a lot of the theory. These are just exercises that I do. But like I said earlier, if you want me to delve into this a little bit more in terms of perspective and whatnot, make sure you let me know. But yeah, so typically I think I started with cubes and then worked my way through the different variants of cubes, rectangles, then onto things like cylinders, which again are quite a tricky thing to draw. So if you would like me to go more into depth with that sort of thing, I'll happily do so. But then finding variants on the whole. So let's just say you sort of know how to draw a cylinder, but want to push yourself a little bit. Sort of do a cylinder with a kink in it. Then from cylinders, then move on to things like triangles, all the different various types of triangle. You could then do like curved edges on things. Then something that I really used to enjoy doing in terms of I felt the benefit of doing them was making letters like the alphabet, three-dimensional. Or symbols. Numbers, anything like that. You could do logos. Etc., etc. So that might seem like a lot, but just start with one shape. Even just keep it as its 2D counterpart. So instead of starting with cubes, practice drawing an even square. And then, add a few little bits here and there. Work your way up to a cube. And things like that don't really take too long. Do a few pages of cubes and you'll soon get the hang of, you surround yourself with enough cubes, you'll soon get the hang of them. But things like shapes and being able to rotate them in such a way, be that with the knowledge of perspective or instinctually, both are ideal. It'll help you more than anything. And it seems a bit dull, but it's pretty relaxing, really. So yeah, shapes, lines, shapes, and then finally, and this is a little bit more fun because I suppose it's more akin to something that people might want to do rather than. Hang on a sec, just need to get my other phone. Here we go. And that is continuous line. Now, I think in the last video I did mention that. And I might have even done one, I can't really remember. No, I don't think I did. Anyway, so continuous line is kind of how it sounds. You draw an image, and it doesn't have to be a figure, it doesn't have to be an astronaut, it could be whatever you want, it could be fruit, it could be buildings, musical instruments, portraits, whatever. But you attempt to draw that only using one line. So basically not lifting your pen up off of the page. Now, a lot of the times it doesn't work, but what it does do, much like drawing lines, it'll improve your line qualities. And your confidence with a pen, which is kind of what this whole video is sort of aimed towards, isn't it? So again, it's kind of about making mistakes. It's also about simplifying what you see. So don't necessarily worry about getting things, correct, let's call it. And don't even worry about getting the whole subject, details and all. It is literally or the way that I use it, an exercise. Now, people do use this technique to make artwork, and I wouldn't discredit that in any sense of the word. But like I say, for me, it's more of an exercise in order to build a bit of confidence, improve my line quality. And it also frees you up a bit in terms of, you're allowing yourself to make certain mistakes because you're under certain constraints, if that makes sense. So it's not going to be a like-for-like image because it's an abstraction, which gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Now, ideally, you go a bit slower than I'm going. I feel like I'm rushing this a little bit. That's okay. Like I say, make those mistakes. I've made more than a few. And the first one typically isn't the best. But as I keep saying, this is a warm-up. That's kind of the point. It's to warm you up. And what it'll also improve is your observation. Because that's, if you're wanting to study from reference in order to build a visual library, or you just want to get better at, like say, drawing with pen but being a bit more accurate, this is a great little exercise again, because you're having to be vigilant, but you're letting yourself off the hook a little bit in terms of your accuracy, if that makes sense. So you aim to be as accurate as possible and to be observant as possible, but don't beat yourself up for not being, if that makes sense. Because I think, like I said in the last video, a lot of this sort of stuff is about confidence. So if you can sort of trick yourself into, having fun, enjoying the process, because this is a very enjoyable thing to do. And I'm probably being too detailed now. I'm just trying to keep this visual for the sake of the video, but yeah, you can do what you like with it. You can experiment. You can see how little is needed in terms of what you need to represent a particular thing. So say like this astronaut, I feel like you could probably tell it was an astronaut if you didn't know. But, you could make this a lot more simple. I don't know if I've got quite enough space there, but let's say you look at things like what makes an astronaut an astronaut. Well, the helmet. And like I say, you could do this with a building. What makes a particular building distinguishable. You can you don't have to draw that foot. You don't have to, add the pockets, like say, or both pockets. I feel like you could maybe tell that was an astronaut. I don't know. But that's kind of the point of the exercise, is to have fun, as well as sort of exercising your observation and improving your line quality. So I feel like out of all of them, that is probably the most fun, and the shapes is probably the most beneficial. So there we go. We'll leave it there. Hopefully that was all understandable. These are unscripted and a bit rambly, but I kind of want to keep them conversational. And as I said before, please do let me know if you want me to elaborate on any of these things further. I do hope to eventually get some PDF pages done in terms of exercise and explaining things a little bit better. But that will be maybe a month down the road. I am currently in the process of moving house, so these sort of things might have to do for now, but I do hope to elaborate on certain things in the future. And yeah, we'll leave it there. I don't typically say this, but if you could give this video a like, that would be really nice. And if you want to comment something, please do. That would be nice. But either way, I hope this was useful, and I'll see you again next week, hopefully. Toodaloo.